What if the man you loved led you to a house that didn't just ruin your marriage, but opened a door to something watching, waiting for his deepest sin? The moment Jeb and Celeste moved into the hollow house, their marriage began to rot like the wooden beams in its foundation. The house had been Jeb's dream, his obsession from the moment he laid eyes on it. A crumbling relic from another time, a shadow of what it once was, waiting for someone with enough vision to restore it to its former glory. And Jeb? He believed he was that man. He had convinced himself that rebuilding the house would be his greatest legacy, a monument to his skill, his perseverance, his pride. But the truth he refused to admit, even to himself, was that he had done it for his ego. He hadn't consulted Celeste when he signed the papers. He hadn't even mentioned it until the ink was dry. He had emptied their entire savings account, poured everything they had into the purchase, lured by the promise of a once-in-a-lifetime bargain made by an eccentric real estate agent known throughout the bayou for selling property with strange histories. Celeste had no say, and now, every single day, she resented him for it. It wasn't just about the money. It wasn't just about the house. It was about the betrayal. Every time Celeste washed his clothes, she did it with hands that trembled from exhaustion and anger. Every time she prepared his meals, she swallowed the bitterness along with the tears she refused to let fall. Every time she vacuumed the floors he walked on, made the bed he slept in, set the table he ate at, it felt like she was erasing herself. And yet, Jeb didn't care. He knew she was upset. He knew, and he fed off of it. There were nights when he would deliberately start an argument with her, just to hear her rage, to feel the heat of her fury. He would use it as fuel, taking that energy and pouring it into the house. The angrier she was, the harder he worked, as if the house itself was feeding off their misery. Celeste felt it. The house was listening. It was watching. The land remembered. The roots of the weeping willows ran deep, twisting beneath the soil, whispering secrets that she couldn't quite hear, but felt somewhere in her bones. Tonight didn't feel like any ordinary night. Celeste could feel something dark shifting in the atmosphere. Jeb seemed more aggressive, and he had been demanding an extravagant meal for days. He knew she was tired to the bone. He wanted fried chicken, mac and cheese, greens, cornbread, tossed salad. The works, and he wanted it now. Celeste had been ignoring him, but he wouldn't let it go. He berated her, nagged her, taunted her, wore her down until she finally stood in that kitchen, hating every single movement she made. She only cooked because he wanted it, because he expected it, because it was easier to give in than to keep fighting. When she set the food down on the table, Jeb barely even acknowledged her. It wasn't enough. Nothing ever was. The argument exploded like a storm that had been brewing for months, for years. Celeste screamed at him, her voice raw from pain and exhaustion, from loneliness and betrayal. She accused him of treating the house like one of his old mistresses, pouring all his time, his love, his passion into it, while leaving her empty. Jeb laughed. He laughed in her face, mocked her, belittled her. He made every single thing she felt seem small, insignificant, and the bane of his existence. He told her she was unattractive, and deep down he didn't know why he said it, but he couldn't take it back now, so he just rode with it. He couldn't stand to look at her, but he didn't know why. He thought she was the reason they had no children, but he didn't know where the thought came from. She was the reason for all of it, he thought, yet he didn't know why or where these horrible thoughts were coming from. She stormed out of the house, her vision blurred with fury. Jeb chased her across the property, the sound of his boots crunching the dry grass behind her, a rifle slung across his back. He wasn't going to hurt her. He didn't want to yet. He had an urge to see her suffer, but he didn't know why. He could hear an unknown force whispering inside his head and shoving his back all at the same time. He just wanted to watch her flinch for the pure thrill of it. But this time Celeste didn't flinch. Her rage burned hotter than her fear. She didn't even notice the gun strapped to his back. In the past, it would scare her. the way he cocked it in her presence as if to assert his authority over her. But not this time. Her rage became the master. The argument dragged on through the night, stretching into something uglier, heavier. The house seemed to pulse with it, the very air inside thickening with tension and unspoken words. Celeste didn't eat. She couldn't. Her stomach twisted too tight, her chest ached too deep. And Jeb? Jeb sat at the table, eating every bite of his meal with the smug satisfaction of a man who knew he had won. But did he really? Just then, the soft sound of music seemed to creep slowly through the bayou. It was faint, just a whisper in the humid night air, drifting through the bayou like a song from another world. Jeb ignored it at first, thinking Celeste may have been playing it, but then it grew louder, richer, sweeter. A slow, sultry rhythm, the kind of melody that seeped into your bones, that made you want to sway in the dark, made you want to lose yourself. Celeste didn't hear it. This music wasn't for her. This was a sound only Jeb could hear, unbeknownst to him. Crafted for his kind. He was being called, and he didn't even realize it. Something inside him stirred, a need he couldn't explain. His mind told him to stay, to go to bed, to move on from the fight. But his body betrayed him. Before he knew it, he was outside, walking. His feet carried him toward the music, toward the bayou, toward something unseen. The deeper he went, the louder the music became, pulling him like a moth to a flame. Somewhere in the darkness, the pink flamingo watched. It had been watching for a long time. Ever since the couple moved in, it had been waiting, observing, judging. It had seen men like Jeb before. Liars, thieves, adulterers. It had seen their kind walk the land, their sins staining the soil, trapping them in their own destruction. And now, the flamingo had decided. Jeb would not leave this place. He belonged to it now. He just didn't know it yet. And so, as he moved deeper into the night, the flamingo followed, waiting, watching. The juke joint rose out of the bayou like a secret whispered through the trees, dilapidated yet pulsing with unnatural life. Its structure was cobbled together from scraps of wood and mismatched planks, its windows crooked, its roof sagging with time. But it breathed. It lived. Lanterns of all shapes and sizes flickered in the mist, casting amber halos on the wet ground as music bled through the cracked walls, thick and honey slow, drawing souls in like moths to flame. Outside, the scene was drenched in sweat and seduction. Moaning couples clung to each other in ways too intimate for public display. Hands slid beneath dresses, lips hovered above shoulders. The women, brown-skinned goddesses glistening under the moonlight, moved with hypnotic rhythm. The humidity slicked their skin, sweat pouring down their legs and soaking the seams of their flapper dresses. The men pressed against them with shirts stuck to their backs, zippers bulging and their breath ragged from lust and heat. But these were no ordinary lovers. These were men lured from their worldly lives, cheaters, liars, hollow souls who once walked in shadow and now danced willingly into darkness. And the women? They were not of this world. Each one was birthed from a man's most secret, most sinful desire. Tailored temptresses crafted by spirits older than time, their movements a spell, their touch a trap. And yet, Jeb couldn't look away. The mist thickened around the joint, swirling like it had a mind of its own. Alive, watching, waiting. It clung to the edges of the building like a veil preparing for the burial. Jeb stepped forward, heart thudding in rhythm with the bass, the drums, the devil's lullaby that echoed from within. He didn't know it yet, but the moment his foot crossed the threshold, he sealed his fate. Inside that juke joint, under the spell of glistening thighs and glowing eyes, men were being undone, entwined with seduction so potent it didn't just steal breath. It stole souls, and the juke joint would soon swallow them whole. Jeb had never been one to resist temptation. The moment he stepped into the juke joint, his senses were consumed by the scent of sweat and sweet perfume mingling in the smoky air. by the hypnotic rhythm of the blues pouring from the band's instruments, and by her. She was unlike any woman he had ever laid eyes on. A vision of perfection, a woman crafted from his deepest, most sinful desires. Her body curved in all the right places. Her skin glowed with a deep, intoxicating warmth under the flickering lantern light, and the way she moved. Lord, the way she moved. It was as if she was created just for him. She exuded everything his wife never could be. She was the embodiment of every fantasy that had ever crossed his mind, every indulgence he had ever craved. And in that moment, his wife seemed to become a distant memory. She found him before he could even think to seek her out. Her eyes locked onto his from across the room, their pull stronger than anything he had ever known. Her lips curled into a smile, one that promised sin and satisfaction, that offered the kind of pleasure a man might sell his soul for. And Jeb, caught in the heat of the moment, surrendered. They danced, her body pressed against his, soft and yielding, moving in perfect harmony with the slow, sultry music. The joint faded away. There was only her breath against his neck, her fingers tracing circles along his spine, her voice, honeyed and sweet, whispering promises of things he had only dreamed of. The world outside did not exist. His wife, his life, his past, all of it dissolved beneath the weight of his lust. The moon climbed higher. Somewhere in the night, it reached its peak, glowing high above the bayou like an all-seeing eye. And that was when Jeb noticed something was wrong. His hands were still on her waist, but something had changed. Her warmth was fading. At first, he thought it was a trick of the lantern light, the way the shadows flickered across her skin. But then, as she tilted her head back to laugh, he saw it. Her skin was no longer rich and deep like cocoa, but something thinner, almost translucent, like a fragile veil stretched over hollow bones. His breath caught in his throat. She was still moving, still whispering sweet things into his ear, but he could see through her now. See the ridges of her ribs, the delicate structures of her fingers, the empty spaces where muscle and flesh should have been. A chill shot up his spine. His gaze darted around the juke joint, his pulse pounding as realization set in. It wasn't just her. The band was still playing, their fingers gliding over their instruments, but their skin had taken on the same ghostly quality, their bones visible beneath their fading flesh. The couples around him continued their slow, seductive movements, their clothes floating unnaturally through the air, as though detached from their decaying bodies. Jeb wanted to run. He wanted to break away, to escape the nightmare that had unfolded before him. But he couldn't. The woman, his dream, his temptation, tightened her grip on him. He tried to pull back, but she held firm. And then, the room changed. The music, once sultry and slow, became something else, something unnatural, dissonant, like the howling of spirits trapped between worlds. The air thickened, pulsing with an energy he could not explain. Then they turned to him, every single one of them. The singers, the dancers, the band. Their eyes flickered open, glowing in brilliant shades of unnatural green and yellow, piercing through him like burning embers. The once inviting heat of the juke joint became oppressive, suffocating. Jeb's pulse raced, his limbs felt heavy, his breath shallow. The woman in his arms, the one he had given himself to without hesitation, smiled wider, her teeth sharper now, her beauty something unholy. "You ain't leaving, Jeb," she cooed, her voice no longer warm, but something else, something ancient. "You belong to us now." His mouth went dry. Then the pink flamingo appeared, not the bird that had watched him from the shadows of the plantation. No, it had taken form, become her, the woman in his arms, his every desire, his every weakness, crafted into the perfect trap. The room erupted into laughter, not the laughter of joy, but of something knowing, something wicked. The dancers and musicians closed in, their skeletal hands reaching for him, their ghostly figures wrapping around him like mist. Jeb screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the juke joint itself. They pulled him in, absorbed him, swallowed him into the ether of the other world, where flesh and bone no longer mattered. The room pulsed, then collapsed into silence. The juke joint, gone. The lanterns extinguished. The singers, the dancers, the music vanished into the darkness, as if they had never been. And in the quiet that followed, the only sound that remained was the faint echo of a laugh, the laugh of a woman who had never been human to begin with. Celeste awoke to a strange stillness. It wasn't just the absence of noise, it was the absence of something else, something she couldn't name. She lay in bed, staring up at the ceiling, feeling the air itself shift around her. A faint drizzle tapped against the window pane, soft and rhythmic, a sound that should have been comforting. But beneath it, something else lingered, something foreboding, something unnatural. The moon hung low, its pale light slipping through the curtains like an uninvited guest, casting eerie silver streaks across the bedroom floor. It was watching her. She could feel it. She exhaled slowly. Something had happened. She could feel it in the weight of the air, in the way it seemed thick with unrest, like the land itself had exhaled after holding its breath for too long. And yet, there was relief, like stepping out of a dense forest and into an open field, like fresh air filling her lungs for the first time in years. But why? She sat up. "Jeb." Silence. She called again, louder this time. Nothing. A flicker of unease rippled through her. She climbed out of bed, moving cautiously through the house, calling his name into the dimly lit halls, waiting for the familiar grumble of his voice, the weight of his presence. Still nothing. Her hands trembled as she flicked on a light. The dining table sat just as she had left it, his plate still there, his half-eaten meal untouched since the night before. Her stomach tightened. She checked his study. Empty. She checked the front porch. Nothing. The keys to his truck were still on the hook. His boots were by the door. Her heartbeat quickened as she stepped outside. The air was damp with rain, the scent of wet earth thick in her nostrils. The bayou was quiet. Too quiet, like it was holding on to some terrible secret. She glanced around, scanning the land for any sign of movement. No footprints in the mud, no distant flicker of a lantern, no flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. But something else had changed. The air felt lighter, as if the very land had been unburdened of something foul, something it had tolerated for too long. Celeste swallowed hard. She didn't know where Jeb was, but she knew, deep in her gut, that he wasn't coming back. A cold realization settled over her, sending a shiver down her spine. It was time to go. She didn't stop to question it. She didn't need to. For the first time in years, she felt certainty settle in her bones. She turned back toward the house, pushing through the door, moving quickly but cautiously. She grabbed a small bag. Not too much, just what she needed. Not that there was much to take. No sentimental keepsakes, no cherished memories worth packing. Just necessities. She almost took the truck. But what if he was still out there? What if he was waiting? What if he came back the second she tried to leave? She hesitated, the keys cold in her hand. Her stomach twisted. Number. The truck was too obvious. If he was out there, if he was watching, he'd see her drive away. She needed something else, something discreet. And then she thought of it. The boxcar. She had found it months ago, hidden deep within the bayou, a rusted relic sitting on an old abandoned track. She had checked on it from time to time, testing its levers, seeing if it would still move. Now it was her way out. Her breath hitched as she grabbed a lantern from the supply closet, flicking it on. She lingered in the house for a moment, staring into the dark corners, listening, waiting for something, anything to move. But the house was still. Too still. She stepped out into the night. The rain had eased into a fine mist, rolling in slow over the bayou, creeping like spectral fingers across the water. Celeste pulled her coat tight around her shoulders and moved quickly, keeping her footsteps light as she walked toward the cover of the trees, her lantern beam cutting through the damp air. She kept checking over her shoulder. Was he watching her? Was he waiting somewhere in the shadows? The mist thickened. The trees seemed taller, the path longer, as if the bayou itself was stretching out before her. She clenched her jaw and moved faster. And then, finally, the boxcar. It stood just where she had left it, weathered by time, hidden beneath the towering trees. She climbed inside, the old wood creaking beneath her weight. And then, she wasn't alone. A shape shifted in the shadows, perched high on a crate near the back of the car. Celeste froze. The pink flamingo. It stared at her, unblinking, as if it had been waiting for this moment. For her. Celeste exhaled, her shoulders relaxing for the first time in hours. She didn't know why, but somehow she felt protected. She knelt beside the old crank, wrapping her hands around it, praying it would move. She had tested it before, had tried and tried, but it had never truly budged. Tonight, however, tonight was different. With a slow, groaning creak, the wheels shifted. The old car lurched forward. Celeste didn't know where it would take her. She didn't know what lay beyond the trees, beyond that bayou, beyond the house that had suffocated her for years. All she knew was that she couldn't stay. And as the boxcar crept forward, disappearing into the mist, the pink flamingo remained by her side, silent, watchful, unwavering. Celeste was free. For the first time in her life, she was finally free.